Logan Webb says they're playing like dog Schmidt. What word would you use?
Well, I mean, I think you got to lean on what the ace tells you. I just, I'm not impressed with what's going on, and I know they're not either. But, if Logan Webb says that's what they're playing like, he's got a better pulse of it than I do. So I got to go with that guy. But if I'm rating it on a 1 to 10, I'm giving him. I got him at about a 5 right now.
Yeah, and I guess it's hard to say what's the fix when you've got so many of your regular players out due to injury. But aside from that, what do they need to do better to be, more like a 7 or an 8 in your mind, Javy?
Well, I mean, again, you're only as good as your starting pitching. I think that's the narrative for baseball, and it's as old as time. And you need to have a good start. You need to have a guy go out there. And then I think one of the things that's snake bitten the Giants a little bit is that they'll get a good start, and they blow that start. They don't get the run support that guy needs, and next thing you know, it gets into the bullpen, and they're not able to pull out a victory. And I think that's what kills baseball teams in general, but with the Giants specifically. When you've built a team on pitching and defense, at least that's what you're trying to do in the off season. You can't lose good starts from guys, and they've done that a little bit too often this year in these past 2 months.
Javy, the Giants lineup tonight, 6, 7, 8, 9 are all guys who, as of 2 weeks ago, were River Cats. What can realistically be expected of these guys against the Dodgers this week?
Wow, that's a great question. I mean, they got Yamamoto coming in tonight. The guy's been electric since after that first little game hiccup that he had. He's really been great. And I think when you're looking at those guys, you got to find a way to be aggressive, hunt fastballs, hunt the pitch in the middle. Don't pick a zone. I feel like that's what some of these younger guys kind of end up doing. Hunt the fastball, get it. That's the best way. I was told when I was a young player, when I got to hang out with some of the position players, when I'm learning how to pitch, they said, I'd be like, hey, how do you hit breaking balls? And don't miss the fastball. So that's kind of what you got to get to. Keep the pitchers kind of on edge by attacking early, but I feel like they're going to have to play the game a little bit. And I think Bob Melvin's going to be okay with that. I think I wouldn't be surprised if you got a runner on that you see a little hit and run action or maybe I wouldn't say a bunt, but maybe just giving up that hit to the other side to move the runners along, because the Dodgers are going to come with fire and out of that bullpen and out of that starting rotation. So you need to score early to give yourself some time to settle in. But, I bet you he's going to play the game with those guys at the bottom of the lineup.
And on the other side, when you're going up against a lineup, and Mark and I were kind of joking earlier about the fact that their 1, 2, 3 hitters are all Hall of Famers. What do you do as a pitcher when you're going up against a lineup that vaunted?
Yeah, I mean, they lead the world in everything, right? So far this year, I think they lead in WAR, they lead in OPS, they lead in all those things, and they're not really getting production out of, I think it's probably left field and center field are the two, if you want to call it, holes in their lineup. So it's pretty impressive what they're able to do. And I think as a pitcher, you got to go out there. And again, it's not so much, you got to pitch to the park, which is great for the Giants because it's a pitcher friendly park. But when it comes time to really get it out, you have to pick the pitch that you're able to execute the best. Maybe not so much the pitch that the hitter has a tendency to miss, whether it's a slider and you're a sinker ball pitcher or vice versa. You have to throw the pitch that you can execute the best. And then after that, the chips fall where they fall. But I think that's where you want to see the game call. And I think if Bailey's catching, I haven't seen the lineup. I'm not sure if he's behind the plate tonight after being sick yesterday. I think he's got a good idea of that. I really do think that this is going to be a big test for the Giants when you're facing the Dodgers. You haven't beat them yet this year. You got them at home. It's probably going to be a pretty packed house, even though it is a weekday. But you got to try to find a way to get on the board early, and you got to just get those guys. I feel like the best pitching out performances against the Dodgers, especially this weekend when they lost to the Padres 2-3, they put them in holes. They were 0-2, 1-2 counts. Just put them on the defensive, and you're not going to get the big swings, typically. that you would when they're ahead in the count.
Hanging with Javy Lopez, Willard and Dibs. By the way, Javy, no, Patrick Bailey is not behind the plate tonight. Blake Sable is going to be the catcher, just to let all of our listeners know that's what the lineup looks like. Bigger picture stuff, though. You know this. The fan base is very, very frustrated, and therefore their ire goes to the top. And so how would you suggest to a fan they can actually evaluate the job that Farhan Zaidi has done?
Well, I mean, I think when you look at it, the big picture, you went into the offseason, you knew you needed a middle-of-the-order bat. You got one. Soler. You needed to go spend some money. The Dodgers spent $1 billion. You finished second in spending cash. You went and got Chapman. You went and got Lee. You went and got Blake Snell. So the pieces were put in place. I felt like he was checking the boxes for the front office. You got to give the ownership group cleared all that money to be spent. Now you're seeing it rear its ugly head right now, in a sense that you never want to test your depth, but now you're really testing it when you had a lot of guys knowing in the minor leagues that just weren't proven yet. And much like you mentioned with the lineup, when you're looking at it, 6, 7, 8, 9, being guys that were river cats, and the proof is in the pudding now, and these guys really have to step up. I think for Farhan, I don't know what else he could do at this point. You can only factor in for so much injury, and to have it all snowball within the first 2 months of the season, I don't know if that's a fair hand to be dealt. But on the same, fans are entitled to their opinions, and trust me, he hears it and he understands what's going on, the frustration. I think if you want to silver lining it a little bit, they're not, you don't want to get into the wild card and divisional races, but I will just for fodder here. You're 2.5 back, I think, 2.5 back in the wild card. All the teams are kind of beating each other up, and all the teams that you're going to have a chance to hopefully pass are two of those teams are in your division in Arizona and San Diego. And I don't think either one of those teams have really established themselves yet. And, the Dodgers are off and running. That's kind of what everyone was expecting. But it's going to be who's going to finish number 2, because I definitely see 2 teams coming out of the West and possibly 3 by the end of the way this one shakes out.
Yeah, and it feels like this is a spot where, if you can just get one, or maybe even you win the series against the Dodgers, that'd go a long way toward down the road. Looks like bad news for Jung-Hoo Lee. Nothing official yet after the big-time shoulder injury. But if he's gone for a really long period of time, is the answer in center field in the building, or do you see them having to go outside to try to bring somebody in to man that spot?
Well, I think they would obviously give the opportunities to the young bucks. I think Matos would get some pretty good reps out there. They're going to go with Ramos. I think that gives you a little more time with Yaz to see what he can do, see if he can kind of get it going. He had flashes last week, and then he got cold again. But you need a leader. You need a guy. You need production, like we talked about. The Giants are going to outslug you at this point, especially with the roster that they're throwing out at you now. So if you can get 3 runs, you have to. If you can get to 3, you got to find a way to win that ball game. So I think the option may be other places, but they're definitely going to look internally for now. I think there's a few names out there that I think have opted out of some contracts, minor league contracts, and it'll be up to Farhan and the front office to figure out if that's where they want to go. But it's the opportunity that these young bucks have wanted. They got long looks in spring training, and Matos and even Luciano in particular. And this might be the time. It's Tom Brady says it, that when you get the opportunity, don't miss it. And this is their shot right now. And I hope that that's kind of what the Giants are preaching. This is your shot. It's time to go. Well, am I at home?
Yes.
It matters.
Yes.
If I'm at home, yes, it'll lift you up. There's no question. I think it's very important for any player to have the support of a fan base and rooting you on. I think that gives you that little bit of extra edge, because if they're pumping you up, they're going to be burying the other team, and that's what you want.
Okay, but what about when it gets a little bit flipped? So in other words, what if you're at home and the road team is filling almost half the building?
Sure, that could be frustrating, and there's no doubt about that. I think, it'll be interesting to see how many blue jackets we see at Oracle Park tonight. But Yeah, it can be very frustrating as a player. You want your fan base. You always want to put your best foot forward, and you want to play for a tremendous fan base, and the Giants have that. To have hopefully they don't. It's not. I don't think it's reached the point where they're turning on them. Again, this is so early. I don't think. Again, injuries. There's just not much you can do about that. Now, if it was just a bad product consistently with underachieving players or bad players in general, then you can make that argument for me. I feel like when you have so many injuries and guys just haven't hit their stride. I don't know what that would affect. I don't know how that would affect a player right now. I think you always want to play at home and for a great fan base. And if it's full of Dodger blue, it wouldn't shock me at this point because the Dodgers are so in a different stratosphere right now as far as the baseball team's concerned. But you really in a game like this, in an early week series like this with your rival, this can change a lot of things. I mean, they're 8 games back. You want to hope you can at least win a couple. That'd be fantastic. Definitely get one at least. You can't lose it. You can't lose the division in the first couple months, but you can put yourself in a tremendous hole, and that's what the Giants need to avoid.
Does it feel like the rivalry has, I don't know, lost its luster is probably too strong, but right now you mentioned it early in the week, and the Giants have all their youngsters here, and the Dodgers have this juggernaut. Does it feel less like a Giant-Dodger rivalry tonight?
Yeah, I can understand that impression. I think it's when you look at that lineup and you're like, the Giants, they're running out Ohtani and Muncy and Betts and Freddie Freeman and all the guys like you mentioned. You can go down the line and you have Hall of Famers or at least definitely a bona fide MVP and All Stars. And the Giants are running out guys that again were at AAA and some guys that are still trying to establish their big league careers and some other guys that just haven't gotten it going. So maybe the star power isn't there the way that maybe you kind of were used to, maybe in the Buster Posey days, Madison Bumgarner days. But I would hope that when it comes to rivalries, I feel like it's more for the fans than it is for the players just because so many guys change teams so often nowadays. But it does matter. It does matter when you put on that uniform and you look across and you see that Dodger blue that you want to go get them. And I think that's where the coaching staff comes in because now you've got Bo Mel, Matt Williams, and Pat Burrell who have played in this rivalry and had big moments in this rivalry. And I think that's who you kind of lean on to kind of keep your focus and keep you coached up in those moments.
Javy, great stuff. Wonderful to have you. Giants and Dodgers. Here we go. Thanks, man.
Man, anytime, guys.